Welcome to the Fierce and Fit Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Clarice Yau, a holistic health coach dedicated to helping women over 40 achieve their fittest, fiercest selves. Each week, we'll dive deep into the unique challenges of menopause, including belly fat, weight gain, muscle building, hormonal imbalances, and more. These episodes are recorded live from my free Facebook group, Fierce Women Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. Be sure to check the link in the show notes to join our incredible community and access free content, challenges, and resources designed just for you. This is live number 53, like I said, and it's why can't I willpower my way to a fiercer and leaner body? So I came up with this topic because I was in the DMs and I was looking at all the messages that were coming through. I saw a few people actually mention, like, I just don't have the willpower. I just can't motivate myself. How many of you feel like that's you? Like sometimes you're just like, I just don't have the willpower. I can't motivate myself, or I always fall off. I don't feel like I'm disciplined enough. How many of you feel like you kind of identify with these feelings? Put it below if you feel like you do identify with sort of those feelings, and that's what inspired this live. Typically, my lives are very inspired by the most recent things I'm hearing. So that's why, me being in the group, me talking the messenger with you guys really does help, because I kind of pick up on what's going on, what's your mindsets like in this community. Let's first of all start with, what is willpower? So I think that's important to define. So I'm going to give you kind of a few definitions, or kind of just add on to it. So the first thing you think about willpower is the ability to will yourself to do something, ability to control your own actions. So often it's associated with self-control, right? And people often will say, like, willpower is being willing to resist short-term temptations to meet your long-term goals. Okay. So it's often a battle between logic and emotions, and, like I talk a lot about emotions, especially like on my cravings live and all of that, but it's kind of like turning down the dessert that you looks really yummy to eat so that you can maybe fit into the bikini 5 months from now, or the dress you really want, 5 months from now. So it's like being willing to turn down a short-term temptation for a long-term goal for yourself. So willpower is actually sort of a false thought. Okay. So I want to really, really put this out there. If you believe it all comes down to willpower, then that is your first flaw in thinking. Okay. So we talked about, willpower is more of like it's the logic fighting the emotions, right? If you watch a lot of my other lives, I talk a lot about that we are emotional creatures. So we think logically, but we make decisions usually emotionally, right? Typically, like, that's why people know that they're supposed to work out more consistently. They know they're supposed to eat healthier, but people still struggle with it because typically people are emotional creatures, right? Why are movies with these like crazy music and backgrounds, right? What are they trying to do? They're not appealing to your logical senses. They're appealing to your emotional senses, right? So humans are really wired emotionally. And so if you don't really monitor more the logical side, which we're going to talk about, you will typically fall trapped to a lot more emotional things, because that's where our human nature tends towards. So unless you logically create environments where your willpower can thrive. So willpower thrives more on a logical environment, but you have to create that for yourself. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but I want you to think about willpower as a muscle. So it's a muscle that can get stronger if you work at it. Just like a muscle, as you build it, it gets stronger and stronger. If Clarice asks you to do 500 push-ups and 100 burpees, no, I won't ask you really to do that. But at a certain point, your body's going to be like, no, no, I can't do that, because your muscle has a limited capacity for strength and what it can accomplish. So I want you to imagine willpower as the same thing. It has only a limited strength and capacity before it runs out. Okay, so instead of thinking about willpowering, which will typically run out by the end of the day, or when you're in a bad mood or whatnot, it typically will run out later at night. Instead of thinking like, I just need to willpower my way through things, I want you to think more about, how can I create the right environments
where I do not need to use my willpower as much. Okay, so this is a little bit of a new thought process for all of you, or for maybe some of you, that it's not about like how much willpower can I have, but it's actually like how can I create the right environments where I actually don't need to use my willpower as often. Now, willpower is still an amazing thing. It's one of the things that defines actually humans a little differently from usually animals, because usually we're able to like we can to a certain extent control a certain thought process. Like we see that big cookie and we're like we need to be on a wedding dress in 2 weeks. I'm not going to have that cookie, right? If it was a puppy, they'll just go for the cookie, right? So that is an amazing power that humans actually have, but it is limited. So the way I want you to think about is willpower is your emergency lights or battery pack. So those of you who live in Edmonton, you might have known or might have experienced it, maybe you didn't, a power outage we had on Monday. Well, our area was out for 10 hours, but it's like, okay, when everything is out, you need that emergency light or candles or battery pack, right? So you want to view willpower more like an emergency backup. Yes, it's useful in emergency situation, but regularly you don't want to tax your willpower so much because you are going to run out of it. If you run out of your battery pack or this external charger, you're going to then give into a lot of different temptations and so on and so forth. So in terms of that, how many of you knew that willpower is very limited? Like or is this new for you? Because I know that like a lot of people actually think that they just have to willpower their way through. And I just curious if this is new for all of you, a new thought process that's going to redefine the way you look at good habits about building a healthy lifestyle for yourself. So put below, is this new for you? Did you know that willpower is actually limited and you can't just willpower your way through things? Okay. We're going to keep going with this. So if it's not about that, it's just a backup power, it's just a backup, lights and so on and so forth. So the first thing is to think about your physical environment. Okay. Does your physical environment support the type of goals and lifestyle that you want? So I'm going to ask you some questions to start thinking about, or even things to consider for yourself. Does your space look like a fit person would be in it? I mean, I don't know if you guys can see, but behind me, but the other way, sorry. Oh, there's the barbell, there's a desk bike, there's a treadmill right beside me, and there's kettlebells here and a pull-up bar. So, I mean, if somebody walked into my apartment, there is no doubt that they will be like, yeah, you like fitness. So, does your environment support or look like what a fit person would do? Okay. Do you have inspiration or motivation quotes on your wall? I don't know if you see a lot of quotes on my walls. I have quotes over here, I have quotes across here, I have quotes over here. Does your place support your dreams, right? And the goals you have in life? The most dedicated people usually have environments all set up for their success. Right. So do you have weights, mat, or some equipment that allows you to do some work in the space? And, I still currently go to the gyms and everything, but one of the things is sometimes when I'm working, as you guys know, this group is massive at 5.4 thousand people. When I'm working, I'm like, I really need to move. I just go over here and pick up some of the weights and dumbbells and start doing squats and deadlifts in the middle of me working on the computer. So like, do you have weights and mat and some equipment that allows you to do some work in the space, right? But yeah, so like, is it really clear? Like your whole environment needs to support it. One of the things I always say in my success development side of things, coaching side, I always say humans tend towards what is easiest. That is our human nature. So if you can make it easier for you to accomplish habits, you're going to be much more successful overall, right? Make it easier for yourself. Do you have music you already listen to when you work out? Do you know what are your go-to music, or you have a playlist or whatnot, right? Are your earphones ready to go? Do you have your water jug ready? So what I'm trying to say is think about these things. If you find yourself tending to fall off a lot, to make sure you audit your environment. That is very crucial. And it should be pretty apparent. So if Clarice transported herself to your home, Would she walk in and be like, yeah, you do value fitness? Or you're like, oh, no, 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 I don't want Clarice to come into my home, because that will say a lot about what your goals are. And that's why you can see in my environment, it's very apparent I have goals and quotes. And because that's how I live my life, is I want to be very intentional every single day, right? Now, on the nutrition side, ready for this? All right. So Clarice came to your home and I opened your fridge. Could I say, all right, this person values their health? Is your environment, not just in the workout side, but the nutrition side, set up well? If I came and opened your fridge, are you going to be proud of showing me what's in your fridge? Now, this one's a harder one. I see more people going like, oh, no, 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 please don't look inside my fridge or your cabinet. If I opened your cabinet, would I find things that you're like, yeah, no, I value my health, but I still have these things here, right? And I know that I'm kind of being more straightforward, and not that you can't enjoy a little bit. Like I've always talked about some fun foods and different things. I forget who got those fun snacks that you watch my fun snack live, and some of that is good. But yeah, like, if I was looking in your cabinet or your fridge, does it showcase you had healthy food choices for yourself, right? Or is it tucked away in the back is like a case of beer and everything else, right? Like, does your environment support the goals that you want? Another thing I say here is, if you buy it, typically you will eat it. So sometimes people will say like, oh yeah, well, I won't really eat it, I'll just put it somewhere else and I'll just slowly nibble away at it. Now, there is true, some people can have that type of self-control. However, let's kind of dive into willpower here, okay? You may have enough willpower to be like, oh yeah, I can just eat a little bit, but the big tub of ice cream is sitting in your freezer or whatnot. So you may be good at willpowering it, but you have to remember willpower is finite. Meaning, if you're going to waste energy trying to constantly battle in your mind, should you have that ice cream that you bought sitting in the fridge or that cookie jar or pack of cookie, you're wasting a lot of the precious willpower that is limited. And at some point, you will run out of that willpower, particularly when you're stressed, when you're emotional, when you're upset. How many of you have been there where you actually were like, yeah, I can be really good. I know I'm a disciplined person. And then hits a stressful day or something, just you feel out of sorts. And then you're like, no, I got to go grab that like bag of chips, that's because your willpower has already declined. And then you have to additionally fight it because it's sitting in your home. So how many of you create your environment for success? Like, how many of you feel like, yeah, I'm on top of this. I don't buy food or snacks that I know are bad for me. How many feel like you are on top of it, or how many feel like I need to improve on it? All right, next one, next environment. So I kind of termed this a little bit in a way to kind of give you to stick with the theme of the environment. Okay, so I'm going to call it your habit environment. Okay, routines and structures that in your life that help you create success. So there's the physical environment, but then you also have to have your habit environment. Okay, so your habit environment involves, number one, you need to set some very, very clear goals for yourself. Meaning, what are you striving for? What are you like wanting to accomplish? I know that with some of my clients, sometimes I ask them, or even my Fierce Factor, they had to post their 8-week goals, because I want someone to be very clear what they want to accomplish. Because the clearer you know your why, you are your willpower gets that extra boost and charge, right? Because again, willpower is finite and it will deplete pretty quickly under different circumstances. So if you want to have a great willpower, you also have to have a stronger why. So think about this, like, why are maybe people who compete, they get so lean and whatnot, they have a really strong why and direction. Sometimes people have health issues, like if they don't change what they're doing, they may not live past 3 years or something like that. Like sometimes people have these big reasons, and then when it's such a strong why, your willpower is very, very strong because the why is strong. So make sure you're very clear what is your goal. And sometimes when you say, I just want to be healthy, that's not clear enough of a goal, right? Like you got to be clearer on what your goal is. Okay. So set a clear goal for yourself. The next thing in your habit environment is set small, achievable goals. So, like muscle, you need to slowly, progressively overload the muscle to build greater strength, to work up to your pull ups, to work up to your heavier squats. The mistake that people make is thinking like willpower should just exist, right? But willpower is developed, it is trained, right? So but you train it by setting small, achievable goals so that when you achieve the small goal and you're successful at it, then guess what? Your willpower just went up a notch and you're like, I can do this. I cut out the snacks. Then the next thing is I could do this. I can add, I don't know, more vegetables to my food or something like that. And then you incrementally increase those habits because your willpower is getting trained. Like you progressively overload your muscle, you need to progressively overload your willpower. Interesting concept, but actually very true. Those of you who read the books Atomic Habits, there's a lot of great books that talk about habit development. It's all about the small incremental changes. So those of you who are in the anti-bloat challenge, or the Fierce Factor formula, you guys are exactly in those little like small achievable kind of goals. Getting those wins in is very crucial to helping you slowly build this willpower bank up. Okay. So that's why those of you who are right now in the anti-bloat challenge are feeling great, because there's like, okay, I did day 1, I did day 2, I did day 3. We're building that willpower for you. But there's a lot of other factors surrounding it for long-term success, as I'm talking about, right? So number 3, part of the habit environment is you need to plan ahead. So you need to give your willpower a break by making decisions in advance. If you don't make decisions in advance, your willpower is called to be used. We want to not use willpower as much as possible. Remember what I said? You want to already have created success before you get there. So those are things like all my Fierce Factor formula ladies that read my macro guide. What you got a meal plan. You gotta start to plan ahead. Otherwise, if you don't plan your meals ahead, you will start to have impulsive eating. You'll stop at the fast food. You're hungry, you're gonna go to the grocery store and buy whatever you need. So you need to in advance plan so that your willpower is not taxed. Yeah. Same thing if you're going out to eat. Look at the menu ahead of time. If you're going out to eat, make sure you, monitor, like say to yourself, like, I'm only going to have 1 drink. That's it. Plan ahead, as well as plan ahead your workouts. This is something I say a lot of times. If you never sure what you're going to do, like I'm going to go to gym, maybe do some things, go on the machines, do a couple of things, you're probably less likely to go just because you don't know exactly what you're doing. If you know exactly what you're doing and pre-planned, you're more motivated. So all my Fierce Factor right now, there's no guessing. You guys all know that you're going to do this workout today. You're going to do this workout tomorrow. There's a very standard structure, and it creates increased willpower. Okay. So it's trained like a muscle. So that's the third thing. Number 4. So actually, before I go on, because I said clear goals, set small achievable goals, and plan ahead. How many of you on here who do struggle with willpower? Because anybody who's on here, I know there's something about that topic is attracting you, right? It's like, oh yeah, I struggle with willpower. Do you have clear goals? Put it below. Do you set small achievable goals, or do you plan ahead? So put one of those below and let me know. All right. Number 4, this is still part of your habit environment. So your habit environment is you need to get good knowledge on nutrition to know the why to the no. Knowing the why to your no's is incredibly important so that you're not taxing your willpower, okay? Your willpower is taxed when you feel like you want it, but you can't have it, right? Your willpower is taxed when you're fighting this impulse, this emotional need that you need something, okay? But you can't have it. So your willpower is like, I gotta like fight this, right? Fight yourself kind of thing. But when you have good knowledge of nutrition and understanding behind what food does to your body, like on a molecular level. If I was like, hey, do you know and understand what trans fat actually is doing on molecular level to your body, what it's doing damaging membranes in your digestive system? Do you understand when inflammatory markers enter your system, what it actually creates in your environment? And certain foods causes the expression of epigenetics, which means genetically you have certain predisposition, but under certain circumstances it get exposed more. When you actually learn like details like that, you actually are like, I have no desire to want to eat that kind of stuff. Suddenly, there is no willpower needed. So you don't need to tax your willpower. So, one of the greatest ways to be able to help yourself stay on track is actually getting knowledge and understanding and learning about nutrition, learning about the why to the nose, and not just being like, I just can't have ice cream, or I just can't have pizza, or I just can't have, right? If you kind of think that way, that's why most people fail. But people who succeed usually have a very good understanding of why there's a no to that, or why you have to moderate something in that regards, because they it turns them off once you go, ew, that's gross, when that happens in your digestive system, or oh, like, and then you're just like, I do not have a desire. So no more is your willpower taxed in that side, right? So how many of you on the side of you need more knowledge of nutrition or macros in your body? How many of you feel that way? If you actually understood more, you could actually do better at this. So yeah, put below if you feel like you need more understanding nutrition macros to create a better environment for success, that you don't need your willpower as much. Because otherwise, if you don't have a good understanding of it, you will fight your willpower a lot because you just keep thinking you want it. But what if you learned enough that you don't want it anymore? That's where I find like it's amazing. So those, some of you who are really onto your nutrition, you guys are on a good program, all of that. Isn't it funny? Like you don't crave those bad things anymore. You just don't. Like it kind of, like sometimes when I read something and I'm like, ew, and I put it down because the ew in me is like going through my head of like, ew, that does that to your body. No way, I don't want that. So anyways, so moving on to number 5. So in terms of number 5, I did talk about earlier, but I want this in the habit environment. So this one is avoiding temptation. So I did say this earlier, but don't buy foods you can't resist. If you love chocolate, well, Clarice actually likes chocolate. So, if you love chocolate, don't buy like a massive bag because you probably will eat that whole bag of chocolates. So stay away from events where drinking is the primary activity. So if you love drinking, as I know a few of you have talked to, maybe not always putting yourself in environments where it's like triggered, right? If you're triggered a lot, like try to like be careful about that. Or also replacing a bad habit with a good habit, or a less good habit with a better habit. So if every night you feel like you have to drink one alcohol, which I was just chatting with Beate, which I know she wouldn't mind because she's actually going to post her win, but she always loves her gin and tonic. And she's like, that's always been what she's done. But now she's going to replace that with a healthy spiced tea. And I'm like, that's a great replacement for the habit. So it's like actually replacing a less good habit with a better habit for yourself. So creating the right habit environment so you have less need for willpower. Number 6, this is still part of habit environment, is tracking your progress. So I talk a lot about this, but try tracking in a food app what you're eating, even tracking some of these other elements as well, like your workouts, or even nutritionally, if you're deficient in vitamin B, maybe tracking how much vitamin B or fiber or different things like that. But having some sort of tracking system, the reason behind that is ignorance is bliss, right? So you're like, oh yeah, if I don't know, then I just, just go get by. But that's also why a lot of people over the years go, I don't know what happened. I just gained 5 to 10 pounds or 15 pounds. I used to be so fit. I used to be, I don't know how many of you identify with that, but I certainly talk to a lot of you who like, I don't know, like I just gained this weight suddenly in my middle section, or right. And so ignorance, even though is bliss, but awareness creates change. So awareness is what you need to create for yourself. If you want to be better at not having to like, I need to always like use willpower, creating awareness for yourself is the first step to being able to like really monitor and make good decisions. Because if you don't even know what's happening, you don't know what to change, right? How many of you who have started tracking, whether you're a client of mine or not, you started tracking and you're like, oh, I actually eat not as clean as I thought. Or you're like, oh, I snack more than I realize. Oh, so I don't know about you, but like, for me, even sometimes when I'm tracking a little bit more closely with my coach, I'm like, oh yeah, like could be just a little bit better. I kind of slipped a little bit this way. So awareness creates change. So yeah, so that's another part to help you increase the muscle for willpower, right? And then number 7, this one's very important, is put away the never mentality. So try not to be too black and white. So if you are very black and white, like, okay, so I will never touch ice cream again, or I will never touch chocolate again, or I will never, like you kind of get yourself into trouble because it's too black and white, and extremes aren't great for people. Because when you say I will never something, literally your mind, and those of you who watch my emotional eating live know I talk a lot about this. Your mind will play games with you. The instant you say you can't have something, what does your brain do? I want it, right? You try that with a kid, that happens too. So why is that? Because when you say you can't have something, your mind instantly thinks and perceives it's losing something. So it's losing something. So it's kind of nervous. And what does the law of survival say? If we're going to not have something, we better stockpile. We better like get all that toilet paper and like make sure we're okay, kind of thing. So it's like it's a mind game. So you want to prevent that by making sure that you have a little bit more moderate of a view on food. And it's like, maybe you say this is less healthy for you. Maybe it's not like horrible, but you can have it once in a while. You can have a fun food once in a while. I'd often talk about the 80-20 mentality. So 80% clean, 20% fun. And if you can actually switch your mentality to not losing something, but gaining something, you're going to have a lot more success. So for example, if you were like, I'm eating clean 5 or 6 days a week or 5 days a week, you're going to eat really clean, because on the weekend you get one fun meal. And so your body's like, oh, I get to gain something, which is awesome, which is exciting. So you're not fighting the whole week about like, I can't have this, I can't have this, I can't have this. Rather, your brain goes to, I can have this at the end of the week. So you're like, oh, awesome. So your willpower is not depleted. So I don't know if that makes sense for all of you. That is actually switching the mentality away from black and white and never mentalities to a little bit more moderate, and to allowing some fun foods in your life is okay. Having a little bit is okay. Like if you need that piece of chocolate, actually my coaches, they actually always have one piece of dark chocolate, just a little bit kind of in their meals, just to kind of make sure that it's there and it's not completely like a never mentality. So with this one, I guess, and giving yourself like something to gain, like not lose, but gain. How many of you find yourself having too black and white thinking, and maybe that's why you guys are where you are at? How many of you are very extreme? So you put it below, but I usually think that people who struggle with binge purge cycle, like binging and then purging, and then like, I'll never touch that again, and then binging again, like you guys tend to struggle with that. Or yo-yo dieters, you guys tend to struggle with that. So being very, very cognizant, like, are you a black and white thinking person, and you need to improve in this area. Now, so that's like physical environment. You have your habit environment, just like I talked about. Now, I also want to talk about the mental emotional environment. Okay. So mental emotional environment is here, right? So are you monitoring your stress level? Okay. And are you monitoring your internal talk and thought patterns? This is more important than you think. Just like monitoring your physical environment, monitoring what's in your fridge, monitoring what's in your cabinet. Got to open the door on your brain, this brain little door, and look inside. Yeah. Is it stashed with a lot of trash, or with a lot of negative thoughts or self-sabotaging thoughts? Or is it stashed with good thoughts and healthy thoughts and spirit nourishing thoughts, right? So that is also very important, is thinking about how are you monitoring that. So stress, as you know, is probably one of the biggest energy suckers of your willpower. So here's your willpower tank. It's going to be limited. And if you're stressed all the time, drains all your willpower. How many of you agree? If you're super stressed, you're more likely to eat bad. If you're super stressed, you're going to likely grab like the snacks. If you're super stressed, you're more likely to go off your diet, if you call it your diet. How many of you feel like, yes, actually, that's right? Because stress is that drain for your tank, for your willpower tank. Okay. So, what are the best ways you can reduce stress? Let's talk first about best ways to reduce stress. So, first is movement, meaning you need to move any way possible. And that's why exercise is such a great, they always say exercise is one of the best antidepressants, because it really is. It's helped a lot of people with mental issues to work through it, because it actually helps you when you move and get blood flowing and reactivate your brain in different ways. Your brain is actually going into a different state when you are actually working out. So it's a great way to reduce stress. So even if it's not massive workouts, any movement is going to be great. If you find you're extremely stressed, just think about, have I stopped like moving? Like I'm just sitting at my desk all the time, I'm over studying or whatnot, right? So that's one way. Another way is, obviously, I've said this many times before, sleep. Getting enough sleep is related to less cortisol in your system. So if you don't have enough sleep, then cortisol tends to pump more through your body. And those of you who watch my cortisol live know I speak a lot about this. So cortisol, that hormone specifically, is the hormone that is in your body that says, find sugar. You can think of them like sugar warriors, find sugar. We need sugar. We need sugar and high fat. So that hormone specifically induces you to kind of want to start to have those things. So if you lack sleep and you're really stressed and high cortisol, then you are going to actually search for the junky food, unless you're super aware and you've found good alternatives and things like that. But generally, cortisol does create sort of that type of environment. And the reason behind a little bit of the mentality behind that, just so you guys understand, is when you are like really stressed or sleep deprived, your body and brain is primed as a survival mechanism to look for things that will help it feel better. Right? Because when you're sleep deprived, you feel crappy, or you are super stressed, you feel crappy. So your body is actually the reward center in the center of the brain that I did on my live on emotional eating and cravings live. What did they call it? The brain scans. It lights up like a lot more, and it's super active. Because now it's in the search for something that makes it feel better, right? So that's why people who have high stress, or they don't sleep enough, or high cortisol, you guys are all more likely to fall off track more easily. And then that also means you have to what? You're forced to use your willpower more. You're forced to be like, the body's sending signals like, I need sugar, I need fat, I need all these like junk food, I need all of this. And then your willpower is like, no, I'm on a good food plan. No. So now the fight is on, right? Like I said, the more you have to fight this willpower, the less you're going to have of it. So the goal is to try not to have to fight. Makes sense? That's why the proactive approach is much better than the reactive approach. Okay. So another thing to reduce stress is breathing. I know this sounds funny, but make sure you breathe throughout the day. A lot of people breathe from the chest and they don't take deep breaths from their belly. And then they end up holding a lot of tension in their body, which again induces cortisol. And then they don't know why they're so tense and stressed and all of that. Another thing is mindset practices. So mindset practices, I talk a lot about this. Like, do you journal? Do you reflect? Do you evaluate how your day went? I think I talked to a few of you quite a bit that sometimes when I ask you, in my clients, when I ask you more what's happening in your mind or what's going on, sometimes it's like you're not really even aware why you think the way you do or why you feel the way you do. And so that comes down to being more cognizant and willing to do mindset practices be more intentional. Have your journal, do your journal work. And part of mindset practice is like reframing. I always talk to a lot of my clients in regards to reframing, which means you take a situation and you initially react this way, but you're going to choose to respond instead, because you have to reframe the whole context for yourself if you're not going to drive yourself crazy. So I'll give you an example, a simple example, but let's just say you're driving traffic and somebody cuts you off or whatever, right? And you may be like, I'm so angry. Why are they doing that? They're so inconsiderate. You go off the hilter. I don't know how many of you have. I personally don't experience this. I know one of my friend has road rage. I'm pretty calm usually. So, but like she gets really angry, right? But it's like, okay, if you can reframe the situation, it can be like night and day, right? Because you could be like, okay, well, like they cut you off, that's the reality of the situation. But you can be like, well, you know what, maybe they like really like are going to be late for work. Not to say he's right, but like it's like they're going to be late for their first day of work and they're like so stressed out they didn't see you and went that way. And you kind of can reframe the situation where you give people more grace and then you're just not so angry. A lot of these types of mindset work, like reframing, reflecting on your thought patterns, is going to be really important to decreasing stress. And why do we need to decrease stress, everyone? Because if stress is too high in your body, you're always going to be tapping your willpower tank. We don't want to tap your willpower tank as much. So we need to monitor your mental, emotional environment. So put it below. If you're like, I just thought I have to willpower myself to like eat healthier, or I just have to willpower myself to like do the workout. I don't like the work. I'm just going to make myself do it. Like, okay, sure. There's kind of moments like that, but honestly, long term, these things are the more real things that will actually get you through longer term. So how many of you feel like you need to work more on mindset, and you don't work enough in mindset? All right, so the next environment you need to really create that environment for success, I'm going to call it your relationship and spiritual environments. Okay. So I just kind of clumped them together, and just because it could go under mental emotional, but I wanted to kind of create a division here. So one of the things I want to talk about is, I said relationship environment. So surround yourself with people who can support you and elevate you to your goals. Okay. You've heard of the saying, you are who you surround yourself with. Okay. So if you will find that if all 8 or 10 of your friends are all maybe slightly not fit or overweight or drink or do different things, more than likely you will probably do it too. If you're serious about your goals, you got to surround yourself with people who are, who are like disciplined, or if fit and like have good habits, right? Because you become who you surround yourself with, right? It's like you're immersed with your friends, and that immersion eventually seeps through you through osmosis, believe it or not. So you want to maybe join, like a lot of you are, like in a good fitness group, or join a lifting group. You want to read and listen to things that support you in your goals. So like you guys are doing right now, listening to lives on fitness and reading up on different things on nutrition and different things like that, to keep yourself surrounded with the right mindset. You want to surround yourself always with inspiration, people who are ahead of you, who pull you ahead and keeps you more on track. Because your environment, believe it or not, is your thermostat for you, basically. So a thermostat keeps the room temperature at a certain level and keeps everything balanced, right? Your environment, the people you surround yourself with, also is the thermostat. And a lot of times when people let's just say they want to get fit and they don't surround themselves with the right thermostat kind of environment, no wonder they keep falling off, right? Because like they're pulled in another environment all the time, and they're going to get too hot or too cold very easily, because they don't have the thermostat to stabilize their environment, right? So that's why I bring this up, because environment goes in so many contexts, but your friend environment, who you surround yourself with, is really, really crucial to evaluate And when you are actually around the right environment for your growth, you don't have to exert as much like self-control, because the environment is your control, if that makes sense, right? If every day, every morning you wake up and you're looking at fit people and fitness people who are working out in the morning first thing and all of this, it's pretty hard to be like, I'm just not going to do it, right? Like it almost, you don't have to employ as much willpower because you've created the environment where it's fostering your growth, kind of like a plant, right? A plant grows the best in certain soils, environment. When you surround yourself with it, it will grow. So I also kind of wrote like, do you have something that fills like your soul, like inside, And this is obviously not a faith talk, but whatever your faith is like, do you have something that fills you up from inside? And this is something I think I talk a lot with my own clients about. Is a lot of times people, they have a void in their life, they have a gap in their life, and they don't feel fulfilled. And that's why a lot of times they fall into needing to fill it with a lot of things, or numbing themselves, or eating, or like different like pleasure inducing things, because they want to fill a void. And so, I think it is just to get you to think, because again, there's a lot of holistic elements of success and when it comes to life and fitness. Do you feel worthy? Do you feel loved? Do you feel safe? Do you feel whole? And I think that some of these questions is just to get you to think about it. The reason is, you know if and there is a lot of studies kind of done on this and research done, that typically people who struggle more with discipline and a lot of emotional eating typically come from more traumatic backgrounds, or they struggle with low self-esteem and self-confidence. And so why I'm bringing this up is, if you do have a faith, lean more into your faith. I believe prayer, in a lot of prayer, and leaning into scripture and prayer, is it fills me up. It always, like, even if I'm incredibly stressed, because Clarice can get stressed too, it fills me up. It fills the hole, so I don't feel like I have to grab a food to fill the void, or I don't feel like I have to do something to fill that void, because I'm filling it on a very deeper level. And again, this is something that's a little bit deeper, that I wouldn't say like you need to like right now know everything and uncover everything, but it is, I like planting seeds. I like to plant seeds so you start to think, oh, have I struggled my whole life? Not because it's not, I don't understand nutrition or workout, but is there something deeper below that I need to address? And if you can address and feel more whole inside, you don't have to engage so much willpower. Like, if I told you Clarice is actually not that disciplined, you'd be like, really? Yeah. I just have created environments that I don't have to exercise as much willpower, like I'm sharing with all of you, and so if I constantly have to fight my willpower, I'm not going to be successful. I'm going to eat that chocolate. Do not give me chocolate. Those of you who know me, that I used to be a teacher. When you're a teacher, every student gives you chocolate boxes. I was like, why are you guys all giving me chocolate boxes? This is horrible. I had to keep giving away the chocolate boxes because I'm like, no, you know. So, this might be funny for you, but like literally, like, don't think that like somebody's just more disciplined than you. Or yes, there's a little bit of like, you train your discipline, you train your willpower a little bit, but it's finite. You better believe if I'm tired or exhausted, I maybe want some cravings too. But I create environments where really there's nothing really hanging out here other than my prepared meals. So I don't really have a choice. I got to eat my prepared meals. I just create environments for success, right? I guess in terms of all of you that are listening right now, in terms of the spiritual and relationship environment for success, who here feels like they actually need to do a little bit more heart work? Maybe it's beyond just nutrition and workout. Maybe like, there's like some gap that you believe you need to do more like heart work. And it's not just, so notice I separated out from mental emotional environment, because beyond mindset work, there's also heart work. Like, how much do you look inside of your heart, and what fills your soul? And do you feel grounded in who you are? Do you feel worthy? Do you feel loved? Ask yourself those questions and really think about it, because sometimes if you've tried a lot of different programs and different things, and maybe everybody taught you something valuable in health and nutrition, but you still can't get on par, there could be a much deeper level beyond that. And maybe that's something I can reach out to you, maybe give you some resources on and talk about, because I really believe in this. As I mentioned, I'm very holistic in my approach to coaching people. In terms of creating the right environment. So the question I asked at the beginning of my live, or the live title, is why can you not willpower your way to a leaner and fiercer body? So I hope that this live answered that, because the answer is because it's not about willpower. Okay. It's about creating the right environment where the willpower is not necessary and only needs to be used as a backup, reserve, or for emergencies. Okay. So a lot of people wouldn't know that. That's a very different thought pattern and thought process. And so if you're the person that says, I just can't be disciplined, or I just don't have the willpower, I'm just not motivated, make sure you change the way you speak about motivation, discipline, and willpower. Instead, I want you to focus on searching for ways to create the right environment physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Okay. Look for ways to create the right environments and find the right people to help you develop the right habits and systems. That will guarantee your success. That guarantees long-term success. Okay. So again, I'll say that last phrase so you guys can catch that for yourself, right? So I'll repeat the last phrase. So change the way you speak about motivation, discipline, and willpower. Instead, it's about searching to create the right environments, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, finding the right people to help you, and developing the right habits and systems that's going to create the success for you. Okay. So hopefully that is helpful, a little bit of a different take. And I think that's pretty much it for my live today. I'm good on par today again, 8:35 here. So awesome. Put below if if there's certain things that just really stood out to you, or that you feel like maybe you need some guidance or help. One thing I will say, those of you who are on this live or rewatching this live, this group is growing very, very fast. Like I said, it's amazing. However, if you want help, I'm going to ask you to be a little bit more proactive in reaching out to us, like send us a message, or but like, you know what, Clarice, like send us a message, I need help with this, or would love to learn more about this, because we try hard to answer these questions. But last live, we were at 378 just as the live ended. We were trying to answer everything. Like, I don't know if all of you knew, but like my team was working till like 11. I was up to 1 a.m. We were trying to answer everybody. But it's impossible as this group grows larger for us to like know exactly who needs help. Put below if you need help. We're going to try our best. But if you're truly serious about like, I need help, like I need somebody to help me more with it, I'm going to encourage you to reach out on Messenger, because we might miss you. And I apologize in advance, but if you just rely on us passively trying to figure out in like 400 comments who needs help, it's going to take us a long time. And we're trying our best. We're trying our best to serve all of you. But if you really need help, then you need to be more proactive in reaching out for help. Okay. So anyways, love all of you. And hopefully that was helpful. And it's not about willpower, remember, it's about creating the right environment for success.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fierce and Fit Mentor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, or wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If something in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review or share it with a friend who'd love it too. Your support means the world and helps us reach more amazing women like you. Until next time, stay fierce, stay fit, and let's keep building your most powerful self.